Testing, testing. As you can see, I'm taking my favorite scripts from the series I've been working on this summer after 3 months of generating hundreds of scripts and putting the GH files online, but I'm starting to apply them. And what I want to look into is this application to a ring. And basically, you've got a section here that most people would understand. It's to build a solid. This is to build a surface. And if I just show that, and I'm going to take this one off and put it on invisible. So basically, you have a system of building a solid. You have a system of building 3 surfaces right here. And if I take that off, you'll see where that is. And those are actually made up of 3 different surfaces, which are interesting to think about because of the curves, and then the data that goes into that. So it's a system of doing that. And I'm going to show you what that does without showing the visuals initially. The whole object is here. What I've done is I've said the first part of the script should really be based on generating numbers. And these are the scripts that I think are essential. Build your attributes for your points, and actually build a script that builds the attributes for those point attributes. And you can see what happens in here. This data changes as I play with these sliders, and they're all on snapping at about 0.25. So I'll set that one at 1 and leave it there at 1 because I like that shape. And once you have data, then start bringing that into a curve. You're building these curves, and all I've done is taken those curves and oriented them from that range, which I can play with, onto this so I can form a loft. And that's the way to get a surface. Now, in doing so, you can change out your very interesting polynomials to get different scripts. And that's where I want to have kind of a what's it called, cherry picker up here, that I can actually cherry pick from some of these items. And then you could be able to have a little slider, and boom, you just move that around, and you definitely can change your geometries of what you have. I think I had a cosine in here as well, and there it was forming cosine. Obviously, the sine works very well with what I have it set at. You'll see how that changes. Now, that surface is totally dependent upon where you snap this to. So if you take that through and push it through the top, you're going to get totally different geometries off of what you want in your ring. Really elegant and beautiful forms. So let's just leave that one back at 1 because that was working for me. This one's back at 0. And then with your surface, you're going to take it through my very common, really beautiful script for producing surfaces. And it produces a beautiful extrusion to extrudes to normals. So you start to get a sense of that. So if we pulled that and grabbed a little bake, it's on the other page, so just take a second. We can group it together and make it a little red if we like. And there we go. That little object is there. You can put that into whatever value you want to see it at. There it is, and there it is blue. Very nice, elegant form. If you want to see what that looks like on an E-map, that's always nice. And just pick your geometry, and there you go. You're left with a very nice, elegant shape. And if we put that back in the render, you'll see how that kind of contrasts. And you see the continuity and smoothness of that. That's a beautiful way to have a script that's from data. You've generated curves, which generated surfaces, which generated solids. So what I'm going to do is work on clusters that these can close up into and become playful on one another, and then you're still allowed this variety as you slid through and maybe change out a polynomial to cosine, but then in the same breath, you've got a bake here that you can move that one aside. If I make this a little smaller, move it aside here, you can take your cosine, but realize with cosine curve, you definitely want to get back in here and snap this at another level, maybe up to the top, and then bring this one up like that. Well, it depends where you want to put it. You could put that kind of reverse by pulling that in and pulling that back down. You've got a totally other ring that you can bring into a bake. And I'll just do that again. We'll do a layer on blue. And there we go. Got another ring right there. Very fast. But what I want people to realize is that the back end of all this is basically know how to turn a surface into a solid. And I use very simple tools with my divide surface, my surface from points tool, and then I use my loft correctly in picking my list items, which actually are deep wrapped surfaces that allow me to look at those edges and loft them together perfectly. You have to leave some in, leave some out, so I definitely could use 1-to-1 here, but I'd end up lofting a very interesting thing, which I'd like to show you what that is. If I pulled in a third loft, you'll see that this is unnecessary for the tool, but it's a bit of data in here, and it's nicely tucked in here. Now, whether you needed that as a seam, there it is. It's a little seam between the other sections, which I think is pretty nice. So if you look at it all, you've got that little section there. And you start to understand the architecture of a ring. And because I've done so much building in my life with mechanical tools and simple machines, to look towards jewelry, to find the infinitude, if that's a word, of what I can do within there is no beginning, there is no end, I'm very excited with what might happen as I go farther and farther into this. So 5-minute little tiny script to talk about my favorite scripts and applying them to jewelry. Thanks very much.